Hello there, and welcome to the AstroSleep channel. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. Maybe you have had a long and weary day, filled with the noise and the rush of the waking world, or maybe you are simply the kind of person who finds comfort in the quiet mysteries of the night sky. Whatever brought you here, know that you have arrived at a sanctuary of stillness. This is a place where the demands of the day cannot reach you, and where time itself seems to slow down, stretching out into a long, unbroken horizon of peace. Tonight, we're going to leave the weight of the earth behind us. We are going to drift through the silent cosmos, a journey that will take us from the silver dust of our own moon to the hidden oceans of distant worlds, and finally, to the quiet drifting of ships in the vast dark. But before we begin our voyage among the stars, let us first find a place of rest right here, in this moment. There is nothing you need to do right now. There are no problems you need to solve, no questions you need to answer, and no expectations you need to meet. All of that belongs to the day, and the day is over. You have permission to lay it all down. Imagine that you are standing at the edge of a calm twilight shore, and everything that has occupied your mind today is a small boat that you are gently pushing away. Watch it drift further and further into the mist until it disappears completely, leaving you standing in the soft, cool air of the evening. You are safe here. You are warm. And you are ready to rest. Let us turn our attention to the feeling of your body resting against the surface beneath you. Feel the support of the bed or the chair rising up to hold you. It is a steady, constant support, like the gravity of a gentle planet holding you close. Allow your body to sink into that support. Start with the top of your head, imagining a warm, golden light flowing down across your forehead, smoothing out any lines of concentration. Let this warmth flow down past your eyes, allowing your eyelids to become heavy and soft. Unclench your jaw and let your tongue rest loosely in your mouth. We often hold so much tension in our face without realizing it, so just let it all dissolve now, like morning mist clearing under the sun. Feel that wave of relaxation moving down into your neck and your shoulders. These are the places where we carry the weight of our responsibilities. Like heavy stones we have been gathering all day. Visualize those stones simply rolling off your shoulders, falling away into the soft earth, leaving you feeling lighter and more spacious. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears, sinking deeper into the mattress. Allow the warmth to flow down through your arms, past your elbows and wrists, all the way to the tips of your fingers. Your hands are open and soft, holding on to nothing. They have done enough work for today. Now, they can simply rest. Breathe in deeply now, drawing the air down into your belly. Do not force it. Just allow the breath to fill you up, like a tide rising in a quiet harbor. And as you breathe out, feel a wave of release washing through your chest and your stomach. Let your breath find its own natural rhythm, a slow and steady rise and fall, like the motion of a calm sea under the moonlight. There is no need to control it. Your body knows exactly how to breathe, just as the ocean knows how to ebb and flow. Trust in that ancient rhythm. Let the relaxation travel down into your hips and your legs. Feel the large muscles of your thighs softening and lengthening. Let your knees soften. Let your ankles loosen. Feel the warmth flowing all the way down to the soles of your feet and the tips of your toes. Your entire body is now heavy, warm, and deeply relaxed. It feels as though you are melting into the surface beneath you, or perhaps floating weightless in a warm, dark space. You are perfectly suspended in comfort. Tonight, our minds will wander far from here. We will visit the Sea of Tranquility, where footprints lie undisturbed for eternity in the grey dust. We will drift alongside ancient rocks that have wandered the solar system for billions of years, silent witnesses to the birth of planets. We will dive beneath the thick ice of frozen moons to find oceans that have never seen the sun. And we will watch over the quiet, drifting journey of travelers trying to find their way home. It is a story of vastness and silence, a story that reminds us that we are part of something much larger, something timeless and serene. If these calm, curious explorations help you unwind and find a place of peace, I invite you to like or subscribe to this channel. It helps other sleepy souls find their way here too, creating a community of dreamers drifting together through the night. And now, you have nothing to do but rest. The universe is vast and old, and it is holding you in its gentle embrace. The stars are burning slowly in the distance, and the planets are turning in their measured orbits. All is well. Let your mind relax, your breathing slow, and your body become light, as if gravity has eased its hold on you. We are ready to leave the ground. We are ready to float. Let us begin. As we leave the comforting atmosphere of our home planet behind, we find ourselves drifting through the velvet curtain of space, moving slowly toward our nearest neighbor. It hangs there in the darkness, a silent silver sphere that has watched over the Earth for eons, pulling the tides in a gentle, rhythmic breath. We are traveling to a place that mankind named with a promise of peace. A vast plain of grey basalt known as the Sea of Tranquility. It is not a sea of water, but a sea of time, a place where history has been preserved in a state of perfect frozen stillness. 50 years ago, humanity took its first tentative steps across this cosmic ocean. And tonight, we return there not as explorers seeking conquest, but as quiet observers seeking the comfort of permanence. We descend gently toward the lunar surface. As we approach, the landscape reveals itself not as a harsh desert, but as a textural tapestry of light and shadow. The ground here is ancient, covered in a fine layer of dust known as regolith, a powder as soft as flour that has settled over the rocks like a blanket of grey snow. This dust is the memory of the moon, the accumulated residue of billions of years of silent existence. In the Sea of Tranquility, there is no wind to disturb this slumber. There is no rain to wash away the past. There is only the vacuum, a profound emptiness that acts as the ultimate preserver, keeping every stone and every grain of sand exactly where it fell. Imagine standing there now, in the utter silence of that alien world. The silence here is not merely the absence of sound, but a heavy, physical presence. It is a silence that wraps around you, insulating you from the noise of the universe. On Earth, silence is rare and fragile, easily broken by the rustle of leaves or the distant hum of life. But here, the silence is absolute. It is the natural state of things. In this realm, the sky above is not blue, but a deep, unending black, stretching out into infinity even while the sun shines brightly on the horizon. It is a stunning contrast, a world painted entirely in shades of charcoal, ash, and blinding white sunlight. In this stark and beautiful gallery, we find the remnants of the Apollo missions, standing like modern sculptures in an ancient garden. We see the lunar module, the Eagle, or rather the descent stage that was left behind. It sits there on its gold foil legs, a small monument to human curiosity resting on the dusty plain. It does not rust. It does not decay. It simply waits. Underneath its engine nozzle, the dust is barely disturbed, radiating outward in a subtle sunburst pattern, a gentle reminder of the moment it touched down. There is no crater, only a slight sweeping of the surface, as if a giant hand had lightly brushed the floor. The physics of this world are gentle. Without an atmosphere to churn the air, the rocket exhaust simply spread out and vanished into the void, leaving the ground firm and stable. Nearby, we see one of the most iconic images of our history, the American flag. But in this sleepy retelling, the flag is not a symbol of nationalism, but a symbol of stillness. It stands there, bright and vivid against the monochrome grey. You might notice that it appears to be rippling, caught in a mid-wave, as if a breeze is blowing through it. But we know there is no wind here. The flag is suspended on a horizontal rod, a metal arm designed to hold it open so that its colors could be seen. The ripples in the fabric are not from the movement of air, but from the memory of movement. When the astronauts planted it, twisting the pole into the stubborn ground, the vibration traveled through the aluminum and the nylon. In the vacuum of space, without air resistance to dampen the motion, the flag fluttered like a pendulum for a long while before finally coming to rest. And now it holds that shape, a frozen wave in a motionless ocean. It is perfectly still, a splash of color in a world of grays. As we look around this silent tableau, our eyes are drawn to the ground, to the famous footprints. These are perhaps the most comforting markings of all. On Earth, a footprint on a beach lasts only until the next tide comes in. A footprint in the mud lasts only until the next rain falls. But here, in the Sea of Tranquility, a footprint is a geological feature. We can see the tread of the boots clearly, every ridge and valley stamped into the soft dust. These prints mark the path of the astronauts as they moved with their slow, bounding gait, floating in the low gravity which is only 1/6 of what we feel on Earth. They moved like divers on an ocean floor, light and graceful, and where they stepped, the Earth accepted their weight and kept the impression. Because there is no wind to erode them and no water to wash them away, these footprints will remain there for thousands, perhaps millions of years. They are as permanent as the mountains and the craters. Long after we are gone, long after the buildings of our cities have weathered and changed, these quiet steps in the dust will remain, a testament that we were once here, that we once reached up and touched the sky. The lighting in this realm creates a scene of dramatic, quiet beauty. The sun acts as a single, powerful spotlight in the dark theater of space. Because there is no atmosphere to scatter the light, the shadows are incredibly deep and sharp. They stretch out long across the surface, pools of absolute ink that hide the ground beneath them. In some places, the shadows seem to converge or diverge in strange ways, an optical illusion caused by the perspective of the low angles and the uneven topography of the cratered ground. It creates a dreamlike quality where objects seem to float in pools of light. The astronauts, in their bright white suits, glow with a radiant luminescence, reflecting the sunlight and the light bouncing off the lunar surface itself. They look like celestial beings, glowing figures moving softly through the contrast of dark and light. And what of the stars? One might think that, standing on the moon, without an atmosphere to cloud the view, the sky would be filled with diamonds. But in the photographs taken during those lunar days, the sky is a blank, empty canvas of black. This is not because the stars are gone, but because the sunlit surface of the moon is so dazzlingly bright. The grey dust reflects the sunlight with such intensity that it overwhelms the delicate, faint light of the distant stars. It is like standing under a bright street lamp on a foggy night. The light close to you washes out the universe beyond. The cameras, set to capture the brightness of the astronauts and the land, could not see the dim twinkle of the cosmos. So in these frozen moments, the moon seems to exist in a solitary void, a private room in the universe where only the Earth and the Sun are invited guests. It adds to the feeling of intimacy, of being swaddled in a blanket of darkness, where the only thing that matters is the ground beneath your feet and the home rising over the horizon. We can also see the scientific instruments left behind, quiet sentinels that continue their watch long after the humans have departed. There is the laser-ranging retroreflector, a passive device that sits patiently in the dust. It is essentially a sophisticated mirror designed to bounce laser beams sent from Earth back to their source. For decades, scientists have sent pulses of light across the vast chasm of space, touching this mirror and catching the reflection, measuring the distance to the moon with the precision of centimeters. It is a silent conversation of light, a heartbeat of photons that travels back and forth, connecting our two worlds. Even now, while you sleep, that mirror is there, waiting for the next pulse of light, a shiny diamond resting in the rough dust. Even the rocks here have a story to tell, a story of incredible age. The stones collected from this silent sea are ancient, older than most of the surface of the Earth. They are small time capsules, filled with tiny glass spherules created by heat and impact billions of years ago. These glass beads cooled quickly in the vacuum, forming perfect smooth spheres that hold within them the secrets of the early solar system. They have sat there, undisturbed by wind or water, preserving the history of cosmic radiation and solar winds. To hold one of these rocks is to hold a piece of the primordial past, a solidified moment from the dawn of creation. As we drift further back to look at the landing site from above, we can see the larger context of this stillness. The Sea of Tranquility is just one of many vast, dark plains on the moon, formed by ancient volcanic flows that smoothed over the scarred surface. In the distance, we might see the highlands, the rugged mountains that rise up to catch the light, known as the Terror. The contrast between the flat, dark Maria and the bright cratered highlands creates the familiar face of the man in the moon that we see from our backyards. But up close, it is a landscape of peace. The violence of the asteroid impacts that created the craters happened so long ago that it has been forgotten by time. Now the craters are just bowls of shadow and light, quiet basins, collecting the silence. There is a profound comfort in thinking about these objects on the moon. In a world where everything is constantly changing, moving, and fading, the landing sites of Apollo are eternal sanctuaries. The Eagle's descent stage, the flag, the footprints, the laser mirrors, they are all still there, exactly as they were left. They are sleeping in the vacuum, preserved in a museum that has no visitors, under a sky that never changes. They remind us that there are places of absolute permanence, where a moment can last forever. As we prepare to leave this silver world and drift further out into the cosmos, take a moment to absorb the tranquility of this place. Feel the stillness of the dust that does not move. Feel the solid, unwavering ground that holds the history of our visits. The moon is a faithful companion, a silent guardian that watches over your sleep every night. It is a place of quiet reflection, a mirror made of rock and dust that catches the light of the sun and sends it gently down to us, softening the darkness of our nights. And now, leaving the Sea of Tranquility behind, we allow ourselves to float upward, weightless and free. We are moving away from the moon, watching it shrink back into a glowing pearl in the distance. We are turning our gaze outward toward the deeper, darker reaches of the solar system. There are other rocks out there, wandering travelers that do not orbit a planet, but drift in their own lonely paths around the sun. These are the asteroids, the ancient rubble of creation, and they too have stories to whisper to us in the dark. Let us drift toward them, these floating islands of stone and metal, and listen to their silent song. As we linger in this silver realm, our gaze drifts across the landscape to find the quiet artifacts of humanity's brief visits. We often think of the moon as a desolate place, utterly void of structure or form. Yet scattered across its grey plains are small, intricate jewels of engineering that have become permanent residents of this silent world. These are not discarded remnants. They are relics, sleeping monuments to a time when we reached across the void to touch the sky. Among these sleeping treasures, perhaps the most poetic are the mirrors. Resting on the dusty surface of the Sea of Tranquility and in other quiet corners of the moon lies a device known as the laser-ranging retroreflector. It is a humble object, a small panel studded with cubes of high-quality quartz glass, looking somewhat like a tray of diamonds left on the beach. It has no power source, no moving parts, and no voice. It simply sits there, facing the Earth, waiting with infinite patience. Its purpose is to catch the light. For decades, astronomers on Earth have sent pulses of laser light traveling through the emptiness of space, a journey of nearly 400,000 kilometers. This beam of light, invisible and silent in the vacuum, crosses the dark chasm to find this tiny target. Imagine the journey of that light. It leaves the bustling, noisy atmosphere of our planet, piercing through the clouds and the blue sky, escaping into the profound clarity of space. It travels for just over a second, a pulse of pure energy moving at the speed limit of the universe. When it arrives at the moon, it strikes the quartz prisms of the retroreflector. These prisms are cut with such precision that they do not scatter the light. Instead, they gently turn it around, sending it back exactly the way it came. It is a cosmic echo. It is a whisper of light that says, "I am here." The light travels all the way back to the observatory on Earth, a faint return signal that allows us to measure the distance to the moon with the precision of a heartbeat. This silent conversation has been going on for over 50 years, continuing even now while you rest. Every time that light touches the mirror, it confirms the moon's position, tracking its slow, spiraling dance away from the Earth. It is comforting to know that in the vast, unfeeling darkness, there is this constant, rhythmic connection, a pulse of light connecting our home to its satellite, like a thread of silk shimmering in the dark. The dust does not bury them, for there is no wind to lift it. They remain as clear and pristine as the day they were placed there, staring back at the blue marble of Earth with an unblinking gaze. Not far from these mirrors, we find the larger relics of our journeys, the lunar modules. When the astronauts left the moon to return home, they launched in the upper stage of their craft, but the descent stage, the bottom half, remained behind. It served as the launch pad, the foundation for their return, and now it serves as a guardian of the site. Covered in gold and amber foil, these structures look like fragile, gilded insects resting on the grey sand. The foil was designed to protect the craft from the intense heat of the sun, and in this light it glows with a warm, metallic luster. It is a striking contrast to the monochrome world around it, a splash of gold in a sea of charcoal. These descent stages are frozen in time. The ladder that Neil Armstrong climbed down is still attached to the leg of the eagle, its rungs waiting for feet that will never climb them again. The plaque bolted to the strut, bearing the maps of the Earth and the signatures of explorers, is still legible, its message of peace preserved in the vacuum. On Earth, metal rusts, paint peels, and structures crumble under the relentless assault of oxygen and moisture. But here, there is no oxygen to corrode the gold, no rain to tarnish the aluminum. The lunar module sits in a state of suspended animation, a perfect museum piece in a gallery with no walls. If you were to stand next to it today, it would look exactly as it did in 1969, shining quietly under the relentless sun, or resting in the deep shadow of the lunar night. There are other things here too, smaller personal items that were left behind to lighten the load for the return journey. There are cameras that once captured the first images of another world, their lenses now capped and dark, sleeping instruments that have finished their work. There are tools, sample bags, and even golf balls resting in the dust where they stopped rolling. These objects have lost their function but gained a new meaning. They have become part of the moon itself. They are no longer alien invaders. They have been accepted by the silence, integrated into the landscape of regolith and rock. They are the only things in this world that possess straight lines and perfect circles, geometric shapes imposing a gentle order on the chaotic, cratered terrain. In other locations at the landing sites of later missions, we find the lunar rovers. These chariots of wire and wheel sit parked exactly where they were last switched off. They look eager, as if they are ready to be driven again at a moment's notice. The mesh wheels, designed to grip the soft dust, are still dusted with the grey powder. The seats, simple lawn chair-like structures, face the horizon. Imagine sitting in one of those rovers now. You would be sitting in the quietest place in the solar system, looking out over a landscape that has not changed significantly in 3 billion years. You would see the curvature of the horizon, closer and sharper than on Earth, and above you, the eternal black sky. The rover is a silent vessel, a ship anchored in a harbor of stone, waiting for a crew that has gone home. There is a profound sense of peace in visualizing these relics. They are not abandoned in the sense of being forgotten. They are entrusted to the care of the cosmos. The moon protects them. It holds them in its low gravity, shielding them from the ravages of time that affect everything on Earth. In a way, these objects have achieved a form of immortality. Long after the cities of Earth have changed, long after our steel has rusted and our wood has rotted, the gold foil of the lunar modules will still be shining. The footprints leading away from them will still be fresh. They are the longest-lasting monuments humanity has ever built, not because they are made of stone, but because they reside in a sanctuary of stillness. As we mentally trace the path from the Sea of Tranquility to the Ocean of Storms, visiting each of these silent sites, we can feel a sense of connection to the history they represent. They are the tangible proof of our curiosity, our desire to explore, but tonight, they are simply shapes in the dark, comforting in their stability. They are anchors for our imagination. When you look up at the moon in the night sky, you can know that they are there, resting. They are the furniture of the heavens, the quiet fixtures of a room we once visited and hope to visit again. The silence around these relics is thick and heavy. It presses against the gold foil and fills the empty spaces between the struts. It is a silence that has absorbed the radio chatter of the past, the laughter and the awe of the astronauts, and returned to its original state of calm. It is a patient silence. It does not demand anything. It simply is. And in the presence of such overwhelming stillness, our own thoughts begin to slow down. The noise of our own lives feels distant and unimportant, dwarfed by the majestic, enduring quiet of the moon. We can imagine the thermal cycle of these objects. For 14 Earth days, the sun beats down on them, heating their surfaces, making the gold glint and sparkle. Then, for 14 Earth days, the sun sets, and they are plunged into the deep freeze of the lunar night. The darkness is absolute, save for the ghostly blue light of the Earth hanging overhead. In this cold, the metal contracts slightly, settling deeper into its rest. It is a slow, rhythmic breathing of expansion and contraction, a heartbeat that beats once a month. This cycle has repeated hundreds of times since they were left there, a lullaby of temperature that rocks them gently through the years. Let us linger for a moment by one of the retro-reflectors. It is small, unassuming, yet it is a bridge between worlds. A beam of light from Earth touches it now. Ping. The light bounces back. It is a touch, a connection. It reminds us that we are never truly isolated. Even in the deepest silence, even in the furthest reaches, there is a way to connect, a way to reflect the light. The mirror receives, and the mirror returns. It asks for nothing, it holds nothing back. It is a symbol of perfect clarity and responsiveness. As we drift away from the surface now, pulling back to see the moon as a whole once more, we see these sights as tiny specks of history on a vast grey canvas. They are part of the moon now. They belong to the silence. And as we leave them to their eternal slumber, we carry with us the feeling of their peace. We are moving on, drifting further out, leaving the orbit of our faithful companion. Ahead of us lies the deep dark, but it is not empty. Drifting in the spaces between the planets are other travelers, ancient and mysterious. They are not made of gold and glass, but of rock and ice. They have been wandering since the dawn of the solar system, tumbling slowly through the void. One of them is a stranger, a visitor from another star system entirely, passing through our neighborhood like a silent ship in the night. We turn our gaze toward this interstellar traveler, this long, dark shape that moves with a grace all its own. We are ready to meet Oumuamua, the messenger from afar, as we continue our drift into the deeper, quieter realms of the night. We leave the silver light of the moon behind us now. The comforting, spherical face of our neighbor fades into the backdrop of stars as we turn our gaze toward the deeper, more open waters of the solar system. Here, in the vast spaces between the planets, the silence is even more profound. It is a stillness that has existed for billions of years, broken only by the silent passage of rocks and ice that dance around the sun. Most of the objects in our solar system are family. They were born from the same cloud of dust and gas that created the Earth. They are siblings, bound together by the invisible, loving arms of the sun's gravity, destined to circle the same hearth forever. But every once in a long while, the darkness delivers a stranger, a traveler from the deep, dark ocean of interstellar space, finds its way to our shores, passes through our village of planets, and then drifts away again, never to return. In the year 2017, our telescopes spotted such a visitor. We named it Oumuamua, a beautiful Hawaiian word that translates softly to a messenger from afar, arriving first. It was a fitting name for a silent guest that had traveled across the unfathomable distances between the stars to reach us. Unlike the asteroids and comets we know, which move in predictable loops, this object moved with a freedom that told us it was not from here. It was a nomad of the galaxy, a piece of a distant world that had been cast adrift eons ago, wandering the void in a state of eternal slumber. Imagine the shape of this wanderer. It was not round like a planet or a moon. It was long and slender, shaped like a great shard of rock, or a weathered needle floating in the dark. Some astronomers described it as cigar-shaped, but in our mind's eye, let us see it as a piece of driftwood. It was dark red in color, a deep, muted crimson hue. This color tells a story of immense age. For millions, perhaps billions of years, this stone had drifted through the open galaxy, exposed to the faint, continuous rain of cosmic rays. Over eons, that radiation slowly baked the surface, turning the organic-rich ices into a dark, reddish crust. It is the color of deep time, a patina that can only be earned by a journey of light years. This object did not sail smoothly like a ship. It tumbled. It turned end over end, slowly and rhythmically, in a silent somersault that took hours to complete. Imagine floating alongside it, watching this dark, ancient monolith turn against the backdrop of stars. One moment, the long side blocks your view of the Milky Way. The next, it turns to reveal the narrow end, and the stars reappear. It is a hypnotic motion, a dance with no music, performed for an audience of none. It has been tumbling like this for ages, spinning quietly in the void, long before humans walked the earth, long before the pyramids were built. It carries the momentum of its past, a memory of the violent event that likely ejected it from its home system, preserved now in a graceful, endless rotation. Where did it come from? We can only dream of its origins. Perhaps it was born in a stellar nursery far across the galaxy near the bright fires of a young blue star. Perhaps it was once part of a planet that was torn apart by the gravity of a giant. Or maybe it was a piece of a comet cloud surrounding a dying sun. We will never know its true home. It is an orphan of the cosmos. But there is something deeply peaceful in that thought. It belongs to the galaxy itself. It is a citizen of the spaces in between, a testament to the fact that the universe is not just empty space, but a sea filled with drifting islands, each one carrying its own history in silence. As Oumuamua entered our solar system, it did so with the stealth of a shadow. It dropped down from above the plane of the planets, slipping past the orbits of Jupiter and Mars, moving faster than anything we had ever seen. It approached our sun, not to stay, but to receive a brief moment of warmth. As it swung past the star, the heat of the sun touched its frozen surface for the first time in eons. And here, something magical happened. The rock breathed. Astronomers noticed that as it left, it accelerated slightly, moving just a tiny bit faster than gravity alone would allow. It was not a violent burst of speed, but a gentle push. Deep within the rock, or perhaps just beneath its reddish skin, pockets of ancient ice, nitrogen, or perhaps hydrogen, warmed up and turned to gas. This gas escaped through cracks in the surface, creating a silent jet, a soft exhalation that acted like a tiny engine. It was as if the traveler, feeling the warmth of the sun, sighed in its sleep, and that sigh pushed it forward, speeding it on its way back into the dark. It is a lovely image, a sleeping rock, warmed by a star, releasing a breath of gas that had been trapped since the dawn of its creation, using it to gently steer itself toward the exit. We only saw it for a fleeting moment. It was a brief encounter in the lifespan of the universe. By the time we realized what it was already leaving. It passed the orbit of Earth, then Mars, then Jupiter, fading into the distance. It is now far beyond the reach of our best telescopes, lost once again to the blackness. It will traverse the quiet outer reaches of our system, past the realm of Neptune, past the scattered disk of the Kuiper Belt, and finally it will cross the threshold into interstellar space once more. It will continue to tumble, end over end, into the eternal night, carrying the memory of our sun's warmth as it drifts toward the next star, a journey that will take tens of thousands of years. The story of Oumuamua reminds us of the concept of rogue stars, or hypervelocity stars, those rare glowing travelers that are flung from the galactic core. Just as this rock was ejected from its home, there are entire suns that have been cast out. Imagine a star, massive and bright, that once orbited the supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way, in a gravitational dance with another star and the black hole. One partner falls in, and the other is slingshotted outward. These rogue stars travel alone, moving at astonishing speeds fast enough to escape the galaxy entirely. They are lonely lanterns in the dark, moving far from the crowded galactic plane. But in our sleepy interpretation, this is not a tragedy. It is a release. These rogue stars and wandering rocks remind us that even in a galaxy bound tightly by gravity, there are moments of quiet liberation. They are the explorers. They are the ones who venture into the true unknown, the vast, empty cathedrals of space between the galaxies. They travel without planets, without companions, shining their light solely for the void itself. There is a purity in their existence. They do not have to worry about orbits or tides or the complex interactions of a solar system. They simply go. They follow a straight line into infinity, silent and free. As we think of Oumuamua drifting away, let us imagine what it sees. It sees the sun shrinking to a mere point of light, no brighter than any other star. It sees the great gas giants, Jupiter and Saturn, as tiny specks that fade and disappear. It enters a realm of absolute cold, where the temperature hovers just above absolute zero. Yet it is preserved by this cold. Nothing changes it. It is a time capsule that will outlast the human race, outlast the Earth, and perhaps outlast the sun itself. In the silence of interstellar space, there is no erosion. The reddish color of its skin will remain unchanged for eternity. It is a permanent monument to the moment of its birth. We can also find comfort in knowing that Oumuamua is likely not unique. Astronomers believe that at any given moment, there are thousands of these interstellar visitors passing through our solar system. They are like silent fish swimming through a vast ocean, passing through a coral reef without stopping. We just happen to have seen this one. The space around us is teeming with these wandering rocks, these quiet nomads. It makes the universe feel less empty. It is not a void. It is a web of crossing paths, a tapestry of journeys that weave through the dark. We are surrounded by travelers, even if we cannot see them. There is a lesson for us in the drift of the interstellar traveler. It teaches us about the beauty of letting go. Oumuamua did not fight the gravity of the sun. it used it. It swung around the curve, accepted the warmth, and then used that momentum to continue its own path. It did not try to stay. It did not try to change its course to settle down. It simply flowed. It accepted its nature as a wanderer. In our own lives, we often cling tightly to things, to moments, to people, to expectations. But sometimes there is peace in simply drifting, in allowing the currents of life to carry us where we need to go, observing the warmth when it comes. Let your mind drift alongside this ancient rock now. Imagine you are floating in the weightlessness of deep space. Right next to it, you can reach out and almost touch the rough, dark surface. You feel no wind, hear no sound. You are tumbling slowly with it, turning over and over. The stars above you are steady and unblinking. You feel a profound sense of detachment from the worries of the world. Here, there are no deadlines. There are no noises. There is only the slow, rhythmic tumbling and the endless path ahead. You are safe in the vastness. You are a traveler, too, moving through the landscape of your dreams. As Oumuamua fades into the shadows, becoming invisible once more, we do not say goodbye with sadness. We simply watch it go, sending it a silent wish for a safe journey. It returns to the deep freeze, to the pristine preservation of the void. It goes to join the other ghosts of the galaxy, the wandering planets and the rogue stars, in the great quiet ballet of the unconnected. And now, as the darkness settles back in after the visitor has passed, we turn our attention to the residents that do stay. We look to the ring of stones that circle our sun, the faithful remnants of our own creation. These are the asteroids, the floating fossils that have been with us since the beginning. They gather in their millions, forming a vast, sparse ring between the red dust of Mars and the giant storms of Jupiter. They are the floating fossils of our history, and they are waiting for us to drift among them. Let us move now toward the asteroid belt to see the rocks that call this system home. We have watched the interstellar traveler fade into the darkness, and now we turn our gaze back inward, toward a region of our solar system that is often misunderstood. Between the red, dusty plains of Mars and the swirling gaseous storms of Jupiter lies a vast circular realm, known as the main asteroid belt. In the stories of adventure and cinema, this place is often depicted as a chaotic, crowded field of tumbling rocks, a dangerous gauntlet where stones crash against one another in a violent cacophony. But tonight, we see it as it truly is. It is not a place of chaos. It is a place of profound emptiness and immense solitude. The asteroid belt is so vast that if you were standing on one of these drifting rocks, you would likely not see another one with your naked eye. The distances between them are measured in millions of kilometers. They are lonely islands in a sea of black, each one tracing its own private, silent path around the sun. To travel through this belt is not to dodge a storm of rocks, but to drift through a quiet, dark void where, every now and then, a single silent shape emerges from the starlight, drifts past and vanishes again. It is a ghostly procession, a sparse river of stones flowing slowly through the night. These objects are the leftovers of creation. They are the floating fossils of our solar system. When our sun was born, it was surrounded by a swirling disk of dust and gas. Over millions of years, this dust clumped together to form the planets we know today: Earth, Venus, Mars. But here, in this gap between the rocky inner worlds and the gas giants, The gravity of Jupiter was too strong to allow a planet to form. It kept the dust stirred up, preventing it from coalescing into a single world. And so, the material remained as it was, frozen in time. These asteroids are the building blocks that never became a house. They are the original clay, unchanged for 4.5 billion years. To look at them is to look directly into the nursery of the solar system, to see the raw materials exactly as they were before life began. Let us drift close to one of these ancient stones. Most of the asteroids here are what astronomers call C-type or carbonaceous asteroids. Imagine a rock as dark as coal, a deep matte black that absorbs almost all the sunlight that touches it. It does not shine. It does not sparkle. It is a shadow moving against the shadows. These dark stones are rich in carbon, the very same element that makes up the backbone of life on Earth. They are also rich in water, locked away in the form of hydrated clay minerals. They are damp, dark, and incredibly old. As we float alongside one of these carbon worlds, we can see its surface is not smooth. It is pitted and scarred with craters, the record of billions of years of tiny impacts. But in this soft light, the craters look like dimples, like the texture of a heavy velvet curtain. There is no air here to weather the rock, so every edge remains sharp, every shadow remains pitch black. The asteroid spins slowly, perhaps once every few hours. It is a lazy, tumbling motion, like a sleeping giant turning over in a dream. We can imagine the silence on its surface. If you were to lay your ear against the cold rock, you would hear nothing but the deep, resonant hum of existence itself, the vibration of matter holding itself together against the vacuum. Further out, or perhaps drifting on a different inclination, we might encounter the S-type asteroids. These are the stony ones, made of silicate rock and nickel iron. They are brighter than their carbon cousins, reflecting a little more of the weak sunlight. They might appear grey, or perhaps slightly reddish, like old clay pots left out in the sun. These are the remnants of the inner solar system, the rocky material that is similar to the crust of our own Earth. They drift here in the cold, far from the warmth that bathes our home, but they carry the same mineral heritage. They are like distant cousins of the stones in your own garden, exiled to the outer darkness, preserving their stony silence for eternity. And then there are the rare treasures, the M-type asteroids. These are the metallic worlds. Imagine a rock made not of stone, but of iron and nickel, mixing with small amounts of platinum and gold. In the darkness, they might not look much different from the others, but if a ray of sunlight catches them at just the right angle, they glint. A dull, heavy shimmer travels across their surface. These are thought to be the exposed cores of ancient protoplanets that were shattered long ago. They are the heavy hearts of worlds that were never allowed to be born. Now, they are simply metal islands, dense and cold, conducting the silence of space through their iron bodies. There is a soothing rhythm to the movement of the asteroid belt. All of these millions of rocks, from the dwarf planets down to the tiniest pebbles, are moving in the same direction. They are all orbiting the sun, participating in a grand, slow carousel. It is a coordinated dance, a vast ring of movement that circles the hearth of the solar system, even though they are alone. They are part of a collective. They are a stream. There is a sense of flow here, a feeling that everything is moving exactly as it should, carried by the invisible current of gravity. We often worry about asteroids, thinking of them as threats that might one day cross paths with Earth. But in the grand scale of time, such events are incredibly rare. For the most part, the asteroids are content to stay in their lane, obeying the laws of Kepler and Newton with absolute fidelity. They are peaceful neighbors. They keep their distance. They are simply existing, holding on to their history. Think of the dust that floats between these rocks. It is not just empty space. It is filled with microscopic grains of zodiacal dust, the pulverized remains of collisions that happened eons ago. When the sunlight hits this dust, it creates a faint glowing band across the sky that can sometimes be seen from Earth. It is a bridge of light that connects us to this realm of stones. It is a reminder that we are swimming in the same sea. As we drift from one asteroid to another, we can appreciate their unique shapes. Gravity here is too weak to pull them into round balls. Instead, they are lumpy, irregular, potato-shaped worlds. Some are elongated, like baguettes. Others are flattened. Some look like two rocks resting against each other, joined at the hip in a contact binary. These shapes are organic and natural. They have not been smoothed by the obsessive polishing of strong gravity. They are rough and real. They have character. Each one is a unique sculpture, molded by the random hands of chance and time. There is a feeling of safety in the asteroid belt, a feeling of being surrounded by the past. These rocks have seen everything. They were here when Jupiter migrated inward and then outward again. They were here when the Earth cooled and the oceans formed. They were here when the dinosaurs walked, and they were here when they vanished. They have watched it all from their distant vantage point, silent witnesses circling in the dark. They are the keepers of the library of the solar system, and the books they hold are written in stone and metal. Let us imagine landing gently on one of the smaller asteroids. As you touch down, you would weigh almost nothing. A simple push of your toe would send you floating high above the surface. You could drift over hills and valleys with the grace of a cloud. The horizon is close, curving away sharply just a few hundred meters away. You are standing on a mountaintop in the void. Above you, the stars are fierce and bright, no longer twinkling, just burning with a steady, cold light. You are a passenger on a timeless ship. The rock beneath you feels solid, reassuring. It has survived for 4 billion years, and it will survive for 4 billion more. In a world of fleeting moments, this rock is a promise of endurance. We can also find a sense of potential here. These rocks are not dead. They are sleeping resources. They hold water that could one day quench the thirst of travelers. They hold metals that could build the structures of the future. But for now, they are simply waiting. They are not in a rush to be useful. They are content to be what they are. There is a lesson in that too. The value of a thing does not lie only in what it can do or what it can produce, but simply in the fact that it exists. The asteroid exists. It occupies its space. It follows its path. And that is enough. As we drift through this quiet river, we might notice that not all the residents are rocks. Far out on the edges of the belt, where the sun's warmth is even fainter, the composition begins to change. The stones give way to something else. We begin to see objects that are not made of hard, dark carbon or heavy iron, but of something more fragile, more volatile. We are approaching the realm of the icy wanderers. These are the objects that, when they venture too close to the sun, would transform into the most spectacular sights in the heavens. But out here, they are just sleeping dirty snowballs, frozen and dormant. We are leaving the domain of the floating fossils now. We have walked among the ancient ruins of the solar system's construction, the dark bricks that were left over after the planets were built. We have felt the peace of their solitude and the comfort of their immense age. Now, we turn our attention to a different kind of beauty. We turn toward the dance of ice and dust. We are ready to meet the comets, the celestial nomads that carry the frozen breath of the outer solar system on their backs. Let the image of the dark, tumbling stones fade gently from your mind. Let them recede into the black velvet background, continuing their slow, endless circle. They will be there when you wake. They will be there always. But now, we move on to a world of sublimation and tales of light. We move toward the comets. We have drifted among the silent stones of the asteroid belt, those dry and ancient monuments to the solar system's beginning. But as we move further outward, the character of the cosmos begins to change. The warmth of the sun becomes a distant memory, a mere pinprick of light in a sky that is overwhelmingly black. Here, the temperature drops to levels that freeze not just water, but the very gases of the atmosphere. We are entering the realm of the deep freeze, the nursery of the comets. These are the celestial wanderers that bring a different kind of beauty to the night, a beauty born not of stone and metal, but of ice. In the vast, cold outer reaches of the solar system, known as the Kuiper Belt and the even more distant Oort cloud, billions of these objects slumber in the dark. Astronomers affectionately call them dirty snowballs, but let us think of them as frozen archives. They are composed of the primordial ices, water, CO2, ammonia, and methane, mixed with the dark organic dust of the early universe. For eons, they drift in the absolute zero of deep space, perfectly preserved like seeds waiting for a season that may never come. They are dormant, dark, and seemingly lifeless, tumbling slowly in the immense silence, where the sun is just another star. But occasionally, the gravity of a passing star or the subtle shifting of the galaxy's tide will nudge one of these sleepers. It begins a long, slow fall toward the center of the solar system. This journey can take thousands of years, a lonely pilgrimage from the edge of oblivion toward the warmth of the hearth. For centuries, the comet remains a dark, frozen rock, invisible to anyone watching. It is only when it crosses the threshold of Mars, approaching the warmth that we take for granted, that the magic begins. As the comet draws closer to the sun, it begins to feel the touch of the heat. The ice, which has been frozen hard as rock for billions of years, begins to awaken. On Earth, ice melts into water, but in the vacuum of space, something more elegant happens. The process is called sublimation. The ice skips the liquid phase entirely and transforms directly into gas. It sighs. It releases a breath that it has held since the dawn of time. This gas expands outward, carrying with it tiny grains of ancient dust, creating a glowing cloud around the nucleus known as the coma. The comet is no longer just a rock. It has become a hazy, luminous atmosphere, a soft sphere of light moving through the dark. And then the true transformation occurs. The pressure of the sunlight itself, along with the solar wind, a stream of charged particles flowing from the sun, pushes against this cloud of gas and dust. It gently sweeps the material backward, stretching it out into a magnificent tail. This is the moment the comet earns its name, which comes from the Latin word for long-haired. It unfurls a vast flowing veil behind it, a train of white and gold that can stretch for millions of kilometers across the sky. Imagine drifting alongside a comet in this phase of its life. You would see the nucleus, the solid heart of the comet, hidden deep within the glowing mist. It might be shaped like a rugged mountain range, or two lobes fused together gently. From its surface, jets of gas and dust are erupting silently into the vacuum. These are not violent explosions, but steady, powerful streams, like geysers of mist rising into the sunlight. The dust particles, freed from their icy prison, catch the sunlight and sparkle like diamonds. Some of these grains are as fine as smoke. Others are the size of pebbles. Together they form a river of light that flows away from the sun, painting a brushstroke of brilliance against the canvas of the stars. The tail of a comet is one of the most ethereal structures in nature. It looks substantial, like a solid beam of light, but it is incredibly tenuous. It is a vacuum cleaner than the best laboratory vacuum on Earth. It is a ghost of matter, a trick of the light. If you were to fly through the tail of a comet, you would barely feel it. You would simply be surrounded by a very faint, glittering fog. Yet, from a distance, it appears as a solid, undeniable presence, a bridge connecting the dark to the light. There are often two tails, one made of dust, which curves gently along the comet's path and glows with a pale yellow or white light, and one made of ions, charged gas, that glows with a faint electric blue and points directly away from the sun. In our time, we have been fortunate enough to visit one of these travelers. The Rosetta mission was a journey of patience and precision. The spacecraft spent 10 years chasing a comet named 67P, spiraling out through the solar system, gaining speed, looping around planets, until it finally caught up with the Wanderer in the deep dark. It did not fly past, it pulled up alongside it. Rosetta matched the comet's speed and walked with it, a mechanical companion pacing a celestial pilgrim. For 2 years, Rosetta drifted alongside the comet as it fell towards the sun. It watched the comet wake up. It saw the first jets of gas burst forth from the dark surface. It watched the coma grow and the tail unfurl. It listened, too. The sensors on the spacecraft picked up a strange, rhythmic magnetic oscillation coming from the comet. When converted into sound, it sounded like a low, clicking purr, a mysterious song sung by the comet to the void. It was the sound of the interaction between the solar wind and the comet's atmosphere, a song of physics and plasma, eerie and beautiful. And then Rosetta did something even more gentle. It released a small lander named Philae. Imagine that small box, the size of a washing machine, descending slowly, ever so slowly, through the low gravity. It drifted down for 7 hours, falling like a leaf. When it touched the surface, it did not crash. It bounced. The gravity was so weak, 100,000 times weaker than Earth's, that the lander floated up again, turning in a slow arc before settling down in a dark, rocky crevice. It landed in the shadow of a cliff, a place of eternal twilight. Philae fell asleep there. Its solar panels were in the shade, unable to catch enough sun to keep it awake for long. It sent back a flurry of data, whispering its discoveries to the mothership above, and then, as its batteries drained, it went into hibernation. It became a permanent resident of the comet. It is still there now, riding the comet as it moves through space, It is a tiny monument to human curiosity, sleeping in the arms of an ancient ice mountain. There is something touching about that little robot, resting quietly in the shadow, traveling on an endless loop around the sun. The comet does not stay in the light for long. Its orbit is a long, stretched ellipse. It swings around the sun, basking in the heat for a few short months, shedding its layers, glowing with all its might, and then gravity slingshots it back out. It begins the long climb back up the gravity well, back toward the cold and the dark. As it moves away, the sun grows smaller and dimmer. The temperature drops. The jets of gas begin to sputter and fade. The great tail, once millions of kilometers long, thins out and disappears. The coma shrinks back down to the surface. The ice hardens again. The comet goes back to sleep. It retreats into the silence of the outer solar system, becoming once again a dark, invisible rock. It will travel for decades, or perhaps centuries, in the frozen dark before it returns. It carries with it the memory of the sun, and it carries the sleeping robot Philae on its back. It is a cycle of waking and sleeping, of light and dark, that repeats on a timescale that dwarfs human history. There is a theory that comets are the gardeners of the galaxy. Long ago, when the Earth was young and hot and dry, it was bombarded by comets. In this sleepy retelling, we see this not as a violent assault, but as a delivery. The comets brought water. The ice that makes up their bodies is the same water that now fills our oceans. They brought the organic molecules, the carbon and the amino acids, the dust of the stars. It is possible that the water in your glass, the water in your tears, and the water in the gentle rain that falls on your roof was once frozen in the heart of a comet, drifting in the Oort cloud billions of years ago. We are connected to these icy wanderers in the most intimate way. They are our ancestors, in a sense, the providers of the lifeblood of our planet. As we watch the comet fade back into the distance, its tail dissolving like smoke in the wind, we are left with a feeling of gratitude. It passed through our skies to remind us of the beauty of transformation. It showed us that even something cold and dark can become radiant when it comes close to the light. It showed us that within the frozen exterior lies the potential for a magnificent display. The dust that the comet leaves behind stays in the inner solar system. It spreads out along the comet's path, forming a river of tiny grains, and sometimes the Earth in its own orbit passes through this river. When that happens, the tiny grains of comet dust hit our atmosphere. They burn up instantly in a flash of light. We call them meteor showers, the Perseids, the Leonids, the Geminids. They are the children of the comets. When you see a shooting star streak across the night sky, you are seeing a tiny piece of a comet's tail, a grain of sand that has traveled for billions of years to end its journey as a momentary streak of light above your head. It is a final, silent wave from the traveler that has already moved on. We are now drifting far from the sun, following the comet's path outward. The planets are left behind. The light is dim. We are approaching the edge of the sun's influence. But we are not stopping here. Our journey tonight is not limited by the boundaries of our own star system. We are going to cast our minds even further, across the unimaginable distances to other stars. We are going to visit the worlds that orbit other suns. We are going to see the planets that Kepler found, the sleeping siblings of Earth that lie in the habitable zones of distant fires Let the image of the comet's tail fade into the velvet black. Let the cold comfort of the Kuiper belt surround you. And now, let us prepare for a jump to light speed, not with the roar of engines, but with the quiet swiftness of thought. We are going to the worlds beyond. We are going to the exoplanets. We have drifted through the sparse river of the asteroid belt, and we have watched the icy comets unfurl their tails in the solar wind. We have seen these objects as distant travelers, passing shapes in the night that we observe with our eyes and our telescopes. But there is a deeper longing in the human spirit, a desire not just to see, but to touch, to reach out across the void and hold a piece of the ancient universe in our hands. And so, in our quiet quest to understand our origins, we sent out envoys. We sent ships not to conquer and not just to photograph, but to perform a delicate cosmic handshake. This is the story of the gentle touch. Imagine a small, diamond-shaped world floating in the deep black. It is named Bennu. It is not a solid rock like the granite mountains of Earth, but rather a rubble pile, a collection of rocks, gravel, and dust that have drifted together over millions of years, held loosely in place by their own very weak gravity. It is a fragile world, dark as charcoal, spinning slowly in the silence. It is so small that if you were to stand on it, the horizon would be just a few steps away, and the gravity would be so faint that a mere shiver could send pebbles floating up into the sky. To this dark, quiet world, we sent a traveler named Osiris Rex. The journey took years. The spacecraft moved through the emptiness, guided by the stars, until it finally arrived at its destination. But it did not land immediately. It spent months simply drifting alongside the asteroid, performing a slow, intricate ballet. It mapped every boulder, every crater, every shadow. It was a courtship of patience. The spacecraft had to learn the rhythm of the asteroid, understanding its rotation, its uneven gravity field, and its thermal breath as it turned from sun to shadow. It was looking for a safe place to touch, a small clearing in the field of jagged rocks. The maneuver was called Touch and Go, a name that implies brevity, but in practice, it was a sequence of agonizing slowness and grace. It did not use roaring engines that would disturb the silence. It used tiny, whispered puffs of thrusters to nudge itself closer, centimeter by centimeter. Its solar panels were swept back like the wings of a diving bird. Extended out in front of it was a long robotic arm, a mechanical limb reaching out into the void. At the end of this arm was a round sampler head, looking somewhat like an air filter or a gentle cup. As the spacecraft approached the surface, time seemed to stretch. The shadow of the machine fell upon the ancient rocks, the first shadow to touch this ground in 4.5 billion years. The target site, a small crater named Nightingale, was waiting. The arm reached down. Closer, closer, and then contact. It was not a crash. It was barely a tap. The sampler head pressed against the surface with the weight of a feather. In that second of contact, the spacecraft did something ingenious. It did not dig or scoop, which might be too harsh for such a low-gravity world. Instead, it exhaled. It released a gentle puff of pure nitrogen gas down into the dust. This breath of air, the first wind this world had ever felt, stirred up the regolith. The tiny grains of ancient stone and dust, startled from their billion-year sleep, floated upward into the collection chamber. They were caught, safe and sound, inside the mechanism. And then, just as gently as it had arrived, the spacecraft backed away. It fired its thrusters softly and drifted back up into the safety of orbit, clutching its precious cargo tight. It was a kiss, a momentary connection between the living world of Earth and the frozen history of the asteroid. The dust it collected is older than the Earth itself. It contains the chemical recipe of the early solar system, the carbon and water that may have eventually led to us. It is a handful of time. Across the solar system, another similar dance was taking place. The Japanese spacecraft, Hayabusa 2, had traveled to another diamond-shaped asteroid named Ryugu. Ryugu is named after the Dragon's Palace from Japanese folklore, a magical castle at the bottom of the ocean. And indeed, this asteroid held treasures from the deep ocean of space. Hayabusa 2 was a brave little falcon. It too descended with infinite care. It too reached out its sampler horn to touch the surface. But Hayabusa 2 also carried passengers. It carried tiny hopping rovers named Minerva. These were not wheeled rovers like the ones on Mars, for wheels would be useless in such low gravity. They would just spin and float away. Instead, these rovers were designed to hop. Inside them, a small weight would rotate, creating a torque that would gently flip the rover off the ground. Imagine these small, glittering boxes hopping silently across the dark landscape. They would jump, float in a long, slow arc for 15 minutes, and then land softly a few meters away. They moved like grasshoppers in a dream, exploring the Dragon's Palace one hop at a time. They sent back pictures of a rocky, grey world, a place of stark and simple beauty, where the sun is a bright lantern and the shadows are absolute. The return journey of these missions is just as poetic as the arrival. After collecting their samples, the spacecraft turned their backs on the asteroids and set their sights on the small blue marble in the distance. They travel for years, carrying the dust in a sealed capsule, a reliquary of the cosmos. When they finally arrive back at Earth, they do not land. They release the capsule. Picture the sample return capsule separating from the main ship. It enters the Earth's atmosphere at great speed, turning into a streak of fire in the sky. To an observer on the ground, it looks like a shooting star, but this is a shooting star that we sent out and brought back. The heat shield glows, protecting the coal dust inside. And then the parachutes open. The fire fades. The capsule drifts down, swaying gently in the wind, descending toward a quiet desert in Utah or the vast outback of Australia. It lands with a soft thud in the sand. Silence returns. The wind blows across the desert, and there, resting on the earth, is a piece of the sky. Scientists rush to retrieve it, treating it with the reverence of a holy artifact. They take it to a clean room, a place as sterile and quiet as the space it came from. When they open the canister, they are looking at dust that has not seen the sun or felt an atmosphere since before the planets were born. They are looking at the raw clay of creation. Why do we do this? Why do we spend years and fortunes to bring back a teaspoon of dust? It is because we want to connect. We want to know where we came from. We want to hold the physical evidence of our history. There is a profound comfort in the solidity of matter, to know that the universe is made of real things: carbon, iron, magnesium, water. and that we can touch them, brings the vast abstract cosmos down to a human scale. It makes the universe feel like home. These missions remind us of the gentleness that is possible in exploration. We used to think of space travel as a conquest, a battle against gravity and fire. But these touch-and-go missions are different. They are respectful. They approach with caution. They ask the asteroid for a gift, and they receive it with grace. They treat these ancient rocks not as dead resources to be exploited, but as elders to be listened to. Think of the asteroid Bennu now, drifting back into the solitude of its orbit. It has a small mark on its surface, a tiny disturbance in the crater Nightingale, where the nitrogen breath stirred the dust. That mark is a testament to the fact that we were there. It is a symbol of our curiosity. The asteroid will continue to spin, day after day, year after year. It will cool and heat, cool and heat. But it is no longer completely alone in its history. We have shared a moment with it. We have touched hands in the dark. There is also a sense of protection in these missions. By understanding the composition of these asteroids, we learn how to protect our own planet. If a rock like Bennu were ever to threaten Earth, we would need to know what it is made of to gently nudge it away. We are learning to be the guardians of our own safety, not through force, but through understanding. We are learning the physics of the gentle push. Let your mind float back to the moment of contact, the silence, the slow extension of the arm, the soft puff of gas, the capture. It is a sequence of events that happened millions of miles away in the absolute quiet of the void. It is a mechanical meditation. Everything had to be perfect, and it was. The machine performed its dance, and the rock yielded its secret. Now, the dust is safe on Earth, and the spacecraft OSIRIS-REx, having delivered its package, did not retire. It fired its engines again and set off on a new journey toward a new asteroid named Apophis. It is a traveler that never stops, a wandering spirit that moves from stone to stone, seeking the next encounter. It reminds us of the endless nature of curiosity. There is always another rock, another horizon, another secret waiting in the dark. As we leave the realm of the asteroids and the memory of that gentle touch, we feel a sense of lightness. We are not intruders in this universe. We are participants. We are matter touching matter, stardust reaching out to stardust. We are the universe trying to understand itself, one grain of sand at a time. We are ready now to move even further back in time and further out in space. We have visited the broken pieces of the asteroids. But what about the worlds that almost made it? What about the planets that grew large, but stopped just short of becoming full worlds? We are going to visit the worlds that never were. We are going to the dawn of the solar system to see the protoplanets Vesta and Ceres and the metal soul of Psyche. Let the image of the sample capsule resting in the desert sand fade from your mind. Let the warmth of the earth slip away again. We are rising up, drifting out, past the orbit of Mars, back into the kingdom of the sun's debris. But this time, we are looking for the giants among the dwarfs. We are looking for the unfinished masterpieces of the cosmos. We have touched the dust of the small, diamond-shaped wanderers, and we have felt the intimacy of holding a piece of the cosmos in our hands. But the asteroid belt is not just a river of gravel and small stones. Hidden within this sparse stream of debris are giants. There are worlds here that challenge our definitions, objects that are too large to be mere asteroids, but too small to be planets. Astronomers call them protoplanets or dwarf planets. But in our journey tonight, let us call them the worlds that never were. These are the embryos of the solar system, planetary seeds that began to grow when the sun was young but were paused in their development. They're like statues carved halfway out of the marble, their forms revealing what they might have become. Frozen forever in a state of beautiful incompletion, they drift in the vast gap between Mars and Jupiter, ruling over their smaller siblings with a quiet, heavy gravity. The first of these giants we approach is Vesta. As it emerges from the darkness, we see that it is not a lumpy potato like the smaller asteroids. It is nearly round, a heavy, spheroid world scarred by the eons. Vesta is a dry world, a world of stone and lava that cooled billions of years ago. It is distinct because it has a soul of its own, a dense iron core, wrapped in a mantle and a crust of basalt, just like the Earth. It is a planet in miniature, a terrestrial world that simply stopped growing. As we drift over its equator, we see a landscape of stark, grayscale beauty. There are vast troughs, deep grooves that circle the planet like the grooves on a vinyl record. These are the stretch marks of a world that has survived immense stress. And at the South Pole, there is a monument to resilience, a mountain known as Ria Silvia. It is a central peak rising from a vast ancient basin, standing 3 times taller than Mount Everest. It is one of the tallest mountains in the solar system, a silent titan reaching up into the vacuum. Imagine standing at its base, looking up at a cliff face that soars 20 kilometers into the black sky. There is no snow on this peak, only the grey, ancient rock, undisturbed by wind or rain, holding its shape against the pull of the ages. Vesta is a time capsule of the dry, rocky history of the inner solar system. It tells the story of fire that turned to stone. But as we move further out, the story changes. The universe becomes colder, and the rock gives way to ice. We are approaching the queen of the asteroid belt, the dwarf planet Ceres. Ceres is different. If Vesta is a world of stone, Ceres is a world of water. It is the largest object in the belt, a perfect sphere of ice and rock that holds nearly a third of all the mass in the asteroid belt. As we approach, it looks like a small moon, a pale grey orb hanging in the dark. But as we get closer, we see something that takes our breath away. Shining up from the bottom of a dark crater are lights. When the Dawn spacecraft first approached Ceres, these lights were a mystery. They glowed with an intensity that seemed impossible in such a dark place. Were they cities? Were they diamonds? Now we know they are something simpler, yet just as beautiful. They are deposits of salt, sodium carbonate, left behind when salty water from the interior welled up and sublimated into space. They are the ghosts of an ancient ocean. Imagine drifting into the crater Occator. The walls of the crater rise up around you like the rim of a great bowl. In the center, the ground is painted with a brilliant, blinding white. It looks like snow, but it is the crystallized memory of water. In the eternal twilight of Ceres, these salt flats capture the weak sunlight and reflect it back with a fierce, cold brilliance. They are lanterns in the dark, marking the heartbeat of a world that is still active deep within. For Ceres is not dead. Underneath that thick frozen crust, there may still be pockets of brine, a slushy, muddy ocean that shifts and moves. Sometimes, when the sun warms the surface just enough, a thin mist of water vapor rises up from the craters, a transient atmosphere that hangs like a veil over the ice before vanishing into the void. It is a world that breathes, however slowly. It is a world that bridges the gap between the rocky planets and the icy moons of the outer giants. To float above Ceres is to float above a frozen sea, knowing that deep down, in the warmth of the core, the water still remembers how to flow. Leaving the wet mystery of Ceres, we turn our gaze to one final unique wonder in this realm. It is a world that glitters with a strange, metallic luster. This is Psyche. Most worlds we know are made of rock, or ice, or gas. But Psyche is rare. It appears to be made largely of metal, iron, and nickel. Astronomers believe it is the exposed core of a protoplanet that was stripped of its crust and mantle in the violent early days of the solar system. Imagine a planet like Mars, but with all the rock peeled away, leaving only the heavy, metallic heart floating in space. As we drift toward Psyche, our lights reflect off its surface not with the dull matte of stone, but with the sheen of polished steel. It is a heavy world, dense and silent. Cliffs of iron rise up from plains of nickel. There are no oceans here, no volcanoes of lava, only the frozen, solidified topography of metal. In our sleepy imagination, we can picture canyons of silver and mountains of gold, although in reality, the metal is likely mixed with rock, creating a glittering, chaotic terrain. There is a profound silence surrounding Psyche. Metal conducts sound beautifully on Earth, ringing like a bell. But here, in the vacuum, the metal is mute. It holds the memory of the magnetic fields it once generated. It is a compass without a needle, a magnet floating in the dark. It reminds us of the hidden structures that lie beneath our feet. We live on the crust of the Earth, protected from the heat and the weight of the core. But here, the core is laid bare, a naked singularity of matter, exposed to the cold gaze of the stars. These three worlds, Vesta, Ceres, Psyche, are the worlds that never were. They are the siblings of Earth that never reached adulthood. Vesta never gathered enough mass to hold an atmosphere. Ceres never became warm enough to melt its ice. Psyche lost its outer layers and was left as a heart without a body. But in this quiet narrative, we do not see them as failures. We see them as variations on a theme, beautiful in their own right. They remind us that there is no single correct way to be a world. A planet can be a dry stone. It can be a ball of ice. It can be a shard of iron. Each one has found its own equilibrium, its own way of existing in the void. They have settled into their orbits, content to circle the sun in their unfinished states. There is a lesson in peace here. We often strive for completion, for perfection, for the final polished version of ourselves. But the universe shows us that there is beauty in the process, in the pause, in the rough edges and the exposed cores. Vesta, Ceres, and Psyche are perfect exactly as they are. They are the rugged, the frozen, and the heavy. They are the guardians of the middle ground. As we drift away from Psyche, watching its metallic surface glint one last time in the starlight, we realize that we have crossed the Great Divide. We have left the inner solar system behind. We have passed the rocks and the ruins. Ahead of us lies a vast, open emptiness, a gap millions of kilometers wide that separates the realm of rock from the realm of giants. We are leaving the shores of the solid worlds. We are setting sail for the deep, gas-filled oceans of the outer planets. We are going to places where there is no surface to stand on, where the ground is made of clouds and the sky goes down forever. But before we reach the giants themselves, we must dive into the hidden waters that orbit them. We are going to find the oceans that are not on planets, but inside moons. We are heading toward Europa and Enceladus. We are heading toward the oceans beneath the ice. We have traveled far from the warmth of our own sun. We have left behind the rocky inner planets and the floating islands of the asteroid belt. We have crossed the Great Divide, the vast emptiness that separates the realm of stone from the realm of giants. As we drift further outward, the sun becomes smaller, a brilliant star rather than a warming disk. We are entering the domain of the gas giants, Jupiter and Saturn. But tonight, we are not here to look at the kings themselves. We are here to visit their children. We are here to explore the moons that hide a secret deep within their frozen hearts. We are here to find the oceans beneath the ice. Our first destination is a moon of Jupiter, a world named Europa. As we approach it, floating through the intense magnetic fields of the giant planet, Europa appears as a perfect, smooth sphere of white and beige. It looks like a marble made of polished ivory. Unlike the moon of Earth, which is scarred by craters and covered in grey dust, Europa is bright. It reflects the light with a pristine clarity. Its surface is ice, water ice, frozen harder than granite in the deep cold of space. But this ice is not a stagnant, dead shell. As we drift closer, we see that the surface is crisscrossed with a complex network of lines. They look like veins or cracks in an antique glaze, running for thousands of kilometers across the globe. These are the stretch marks of a world that is alive. They are reddish-brown in color, possibly stained by salts from below. These lines tell us that the ice is moving. It is shifting, breaking, and healing itself in a slow, eternal cycle. There are almost no craters here because the surface is constantly being renewed. It is a face that remains forever young. What causes this movement? Why does a moon so far from the sun not freeze solid into a static block? The answer lies in the embrace of Jupiter. As Europa orbits the giant planet, it is caught in a gravitational tug-of-war. Jupiter pulls it one way, and the other large moons, Io and Ganymede, pull it the other way. This rhythmic pulling stretches and squeezes the moon, kneading it like a ball of dough. This friction creates heat deep inside the core. It is a heartbeat of warmth generated by gravity itself. And because of this warmth, the ice we see on the surface is just a shell. It is a crust, perhaps 10 or 20 kilometers thick. But beneath that crust, hidden from the eyes of the universe, lies a miracle. There is an ocean, a global ocean of liquid salt water that wraps around the entire moon. It contains more water than all the oceans of Earth combined. Imagine a sea that has no shorelines, no beaches, no surface waves crashing against rocks. It is a dark, enclosed deep, wrapped in a blanket of ice that shields it from the vacuum above. Let your mind dive down through the cracks in the ice now. Imagine sinking slowly through the frozen ceiling, down, down, until you break through into the water below. It is absolute darkness here. The sun has never touched these waters, but it is not cold. The pressure is immense, and the water is kept warm by the tidal heating of the planet. It is a silent, heavy world, a place of profound stability. For billions of years, this ocean has existed in the dark, protected from asteroids, protected from radiation, protected from the changing moods of the solar system. It is the ultimate sanctuary. In the depths of this hidden sea, down on the rocky seafloor, there may be vents. On Earth, in the deepest parts of our own oceans, we find hydrothermal vents, chimneys of rock that spew hot, mineral-rich water into the cold sea. Around these vents, life flourishes in the dark. Giant tube worms, blind crabs, and shimmering bacteria live there, fueled not by sunlight, but by the chemistry of the Earth itself. On Europa, in the quiet dark, similar vents might be breathing heat into the water. It is a soothing thought that even in the coldest reaches of space, there are pockets of warmth, hidden cradles where life might be dreaming in the dark. We leave the hidden waters of Europa now, rising back up through the ice, back into the vacuum. We drift away from Jupiter, moving further out toward the ringed jewel of the solar system, Saturn. Orbiting this golden giant is another moon, smaller than Europa, but perhaps even more beautiful. Its name is Enceladus. It is a tiny world only 500 kilometers across, small enough to fit inside the borders of a single country on Earth. But it is the brightest object in the solar system. It is covered in fresh, clean ice that reflects almost 100% of the sunlight that hits it. It glitters like a diamond in the dark, a pure white snowball tumbling through the rings. Enceladus, too, has an ocean beneath its shell. But unlike Europa, which keeps its secrets tightly sealed, Enceladus shares them with the void. At the south pole of this tiny moon, there are 4 long parallel fractures in the ice. Astronomers call them the tiger stripes because of their distinct appearance. And from these stripes, something magical happens. The moon breathes. Continuously, huge plumes of water vapor and ice crystals erupt from the cracks. But let us not use the word erupt, for it implies violence. Let us say they whisper into space. They are geysers of mist, soft jets of white that rise up from the surface, climbing hundreds of kilometers into the black sky. Because the gravity on Enceladus is so weak, the mist drifts upward effortlessly, expanding into a vast, ghostly cloud. Imagine standing on the surface of Enceladus, near the tiger stripes. The ground beneath your feet is warmer here, heated by the friction of the ice rubbing together. Above you, towering curtains of white mist rise silently, glowing in the faint light of the distant sun. It is a fountain of creation. The ice crystals that fall back down cover the surface in a layer of fine, powdery snow, making everything soft and smooth. This is why Enceladus is so bright. It is constantly painting itself with fresh snow from its own interior. But not all the snow falls back. Some of the microscopic ice grains escape the moon entirely. They drift out into orbit around Saturn. And there, they join together to form a ring, the E-ring of Saturn. The outermost, faintest, and widest ring is made entirely of the breath of Enceladus. This tiny moon is a creator. It is slowly, silently feeding the rings of its parent planet, spinning a veil of ice around the giant. It is a relationship of giving, a small moon contributing to the beauty of the whole system. The Cassini spacecraft, which spent years exploring Saturn, once flew directly through these plumes. It did not crash. It simply glided through the mist. Its sensors tasted the water. It found salt. It found organic molecules. It confirmed that the ocean beneath the ice of Enceladus is salty and rich in the ingredients for life. It is a warm soda ocean, bubbling gently in the dark. There is something deeply comforting about these subsurface oceans. They remind us that appearances can be deceiving. From the outside, Europa and Enceladus look dead and frozen, locked in a deep freeze, but inside they are fluid, warm, and dynamic. They carry a secret fire. They remind us that even in the harshest environments, there is a place for softness. There is a place where water flows and where energy moves. Think of the layers of protection these worlds offer. If there is anything swimming in those dark waters, perhaps simple microbes, or perhaps something more complex, slow-moving and blind, they are safe. They do not know about the stars. They do not know about the vacuum. They only know the water, the rock, and the heat. They live in a womb that has lasted for eons. It is a vision of perfect isolation and safety. The concept of time in these oceans is different from ours. On Earth, we are driven by the cycle of day and night, the changing of the seasons. But under the ice of Europa or Enceladus, there is no day and no night. There is only the eternal dark and the constant, steady warmth of the core. Time flows like the water itself, slow, heavy, and uninterrupted. It is a place of deep meditation, where a billion years is just a heartbeat. As we drift further away from Enceladus, looking back at the tiny white sphere and its ghostly plume, we feel a sense of wonder at the diversity of water. We know water as the blue oceans of Earth, the rain that falls on our windows. But here, water is a rock. Water is a cloud in a vacuum. Water is a ring around a planet, and water is a hidden treasure, wrapped in a shell of ice. The universe is full of water, in all its forms connecting us to these distant worlds. We have now visited the hidden oceans. We have seen the potential for life in the dark, but our journey is not over. We must look further still. We must lift our eyes from the moons of our own solar system and look out into the galaxy. We have asked if there is life under the ice of Europa. But what about life on other Earths? What about planets that orbit other stars? The universe is vast, and for a long time we thought we were the only planetary system. But now we know better. Now we know that the galaxy is teeming with worlds. We know that for every star we see in the night sky, there is likely a planet, or 2 or 5, circling it in the silence. We are ready to make the jump to the stars. We are ready to visit the exoplanets. Let the mist of Enceladus fade. Let the white shell of Europa recede into the distance. The sun is now just a star among millions. We are turning our ship toward the constellation of Cygnus, toward the patch of sky where the Kepler telescope stared for years. We are going to see the twins of Earth, the sleeping worlds that lie light years away. Let us pause our outward journey for a moment. Before we truly leave the family of the sun to visit the distant stars, there is one last world we must visit, a world that sits shrouded in mystery right here in our own backyard. we drift back toward the golden glow of Saturn. Orbiting this ringed giant is a moon that is unlike any other in the solar system. It is a world that feels strangely familiar, yet completely alien. It is the only moon with a thick atmosphere, a hazy orange ball named Titan. As we approach Titan, we cannot see the surface. We are met with a dense, opaque curtain of smog. It is a deep, rich orange color, like the heavy mist of a twilight evening that never ends. This atmosphere is a blanket, thick and heavy, wrapping the moon in a warm embrace that protects it from the vacuum. It is taller than Earth's atmosphere and denser, creating a pressure that would feel comfortable to us, like standing at the bottom of a shallow pool. But it is cold, deeply, profoundly cold. We descend slowly through the haze. There is no need for rockets here. The air is thick enough to catch us. We float down like leaves falling in slow motion. As we pass through the upper layers of the purple mist, the sky begins to darken, turning from a bright orange to a muted, dusky amber. The light of the sun is scattered and diffused, so there are no sharp shadows on Titan. There is only a soft, omnipresent glow, a light that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It is a world of perpetual dawn. When the Cassini spacecraft arrived at Saturn, it carried a small passenger named Huygens, a probe designed specifically for this dive. Imagine that saucer-shaped traveler releasing itself and plunging into the orange fog. It opened its parachutes, and for 2.5 hours it drifted down. It was a silent descent through layer after layer of organic haze. The winds high up were strong, pushing the probe sideways, but as it neared the ground, everything went still. The atmosphere of Titan is a quiet one near the surface, dampened by the thick air and the low gravity. And when we finally break through the clouds and see the ground, we see something miraculous. We see a landscape that mirrors Earth. There are mountains, valleys, river channels, and vast plains. But the materials are different. The rocks are not silica. They are water ice, frozen so hard that they act like granite. The sand dunes that stretch across the equator are not made of quartz. They are made of dark organic grains that have rained down from the sky over billions of years. They are soft dunes, shaped by the gentle winds into long, parallel lines that look like a raked garden. But the most stunning feature of Titan lies near its North Pole. Here, in the land of eternal winter, we find lakes. These are not lakes of water. At these temperatures, water is a solid rock. These are lakes of liquid methane and ethane. Imagine a sea of liquid natural gas, clear and dark, resting in basins of ice. The largest of these, Kraken Mare, is larger than the Caspian Sea on Earth. It spreads out across the polar landscape, a vast mirror of black liquid reflecting the amber sky. The surface of these lakes is incredibly smooth. On Earth, the oceans are always moving, churning with waves driven by the wind and the moon. But on Titan, the winds are gentle, and the liquid is somewhat oily and thick. The lakes are often perfectly flat, with no ripples to disturb the reflection. They are pools of absolute stillness. If you were to stand on the shore of Ligeia Mare, looking out over the dark horizon, you would see a perfect inversion of the sky. It is a scene of double stillness, the quiet sky above and the quiet liquid below. And then there is the rain. Titan is the only other world we know of where liquid falls from the sky. that the rain here is a hypnotic slow-motion event. The raindrops of methane are large, perhaps twice the size of raindrops on Earth. Because the gravity is weak, about the same as the Moon, and the air is thick, they fall slowly. They do not crash down, they drift. Imagine standing in a storm on Titan. You would see these large, clear spheres of methane floating down around you, landing with a soft, heavy splash. It is a rain that whispers rather than roars. It washes the ice pebbles on the riverbeds, smoothing them into round shapes, just as water smooths stones on Earth. The cycle of liquid on Titan is a slow, majestic rhythm. The methane evaporates from the lakes, rises up to form clouds, travels to the poles, and falls again as gentle rain. It carves channels into the ice, creating winding rivers that flow back into the dark seas. It is a hydrological cycle, but one played out in cryogenic slow motion. It is familiar, yet totally strange. It is as if nature found a melody it liked, the song of flowing liquid, and decided to play it again on a different instrument, in a different key. There is a soundscape to imagine here as well. The thick atmosphere of Titan conducts sound better than the thin air of Earth. If you were to speak, your voice would carry far, but there is little to make noise. Perhaps the wind sighs through the ice canyons. Perhaps the distant splash of a methane river, emptying into a lake, echoes softly. But mostly, it is the sound of the heavy air itself, a muffled, dampened silence that wraps around everything. The Huygens probe landed on a soft riverbed, strewn with rounded pebbles of ice. It sat there, damp with liquid methane, and sent back images of an orange wasteland that looked eerily like a desert afternoon on Earth. It was a moment of profound connection. We looked at a world 1 billion kilometers away and saw a reflection of home. We saw that the patterns of nature, flow, erosion, sedimentation, are universal. They repeat themselves wherever the conditions allow, creating landscapes of beauty in the dark. We can imagine future explorers on Titan. They would not need heavy pressure suits like on the Moon or Mars. They would need warm clothing, certainly, but the pressure is friendly. They could strap on wings and, with a simple running jump, take flight. The air is so thick and the gravity so low that a human could glide like a bird, soaring over the dark lakes and the ice mountains. It is a world of dreams, where flight is easy and the landing is soft. Beneath the crust of Titan, deep below the ice and the methane lakes, scientists believe there is yet another ocean, a hidden ocean of liquid water, much like on Europa and Enceladus. So Titan is a world of 2 oceans, one of methane on the surface, open to the sky, and one of water below, hidden in the dark. It is a complex, layered world, rich in chemistry and potential. It is a laboratory where the ingredients of life have been mixing for billions of years. As we drift over the surface, we see the sun as a small, bright coin in the haze. It provides only a fraction of the light we are used to, a perpetual twilight. But Saturn is there too, because Titan is tidally locked. Keeping one face toward the planet, Saturn hangs forever in the sky, on one side of the Moon. Through the haze it might appear as a large, ghostly presence, its rings a faint line cutting across the darkness. It is a constant companion, a giant watcher in the mist. We linger for a moment by the shore of a methane lake. The liquid laps gently against the ice. The air is still. The orange light softens every edge. It is a place of mood and atmosphere. a place that invites contemplation. It reminds us that the universe is not just empty space and dead rock. It is full of weather, full of liquid, full of cycles. It is a living, breathing system. The Huygens probe is still there, resting on the surface. Its batteries drained long ago, but it remains a monument to our visit. It sits in the cold silence, slowly being covered by the gentle rain of organic dust. It has become part of Titan, a small metal stone in a field of ice stones. It sleeps in the orange twilight, waiting for the day when perhaps we will return to walk beside it. And now, we really must leave. We have explored the solid worlds, the gas giants, the icy rings, and the misty moons. We have seen the diversity of the solar system, from the burning sun to the frozen lakes of Titan. But there is one story left to tell before we close our eyes completely. It is not a story of a planet or a star, but a story of a ship. A ship made by human hands that found itself drifting in the void. A tiny spark of life trying to find its way back to the blue marble. It is the story of Apollo 13, but we will not tell it as a thriller of panic and danger. We will tell it as a story of the drifting ship, a story of quiet resilience, of cold, and of the long, silent journey home through the dark. It is the ultimate lullaby of the astronaut, the feeling of being carried by the laws of physics back to the safety of the shore. Let the orange fog of Titan fade below us. Let the golden glow of Saturn recede. We are back in the open vacuum, floating between the Earth and the Moon. We are ready to drift with the crew of Odyssey. We have traveled to the very edges of the Sun's influence, witnessing the storms of Jupiter and the orange rains of Titan. We have seen the universe on a grand scale, vast and indifferent in its beauty. But now, as we prepare to close our eyes and let the cosmos fade, we return to the space between the Earth and the Moon for one final story. It is a human story, but one that is deeply intertwined with the laws of nature we have been observing. It is the story of a ship that lost its power and had to surrender itself to the gravity of the stars. It is the story of the long, silent drift of Apollo 13. In the history books, this mission is often remembered for its tension, for the urgent voices in mission control and the race against time. But tonight, let us view it through a different lens. Let us view it from the perspective of the astronauts inside the ship, floating in the absolute silence of the void. Let us see it as a journey of profound stillness, where the noise of machinery died away, leaving only the sound of breathing and the hum of the universe. Imagine the spacecraft, a small silver vessel composed of two parts: the command module, named Odyssey, and the lunar module, named Aquarius. They are traveling toward the Moon, 3 days away from home. Suddenly, there is a mute shift. A tank deep within the service module gives way, not with a roar that shakes the vacuum, but with a dull thud that vibrates through the metal frame. And then, the flow of electricity begins to ebb. The lights in the main ship Odyssey flicker and die. The hum of the life support fans slows to a halt. The guidance computer, the brain of the ship, goes dark. The ship begins to cool. Without the heat from the electronics and the heaters, the temperature inside drops. It falls past the comfort of a spring day, past the chill of an autumn evening, settling into the crisp, biting cold of a winter night. The astronauts move from the dying command module into the lunar module, Aquarius. This small craft designed for only 2 men to land on the moon, now becomes a lifeboat for 3. It is cramped, certainly, but in the weightlessness of space, cramped is a relative term. They float in the center of the cabin, suspended in the air, wrapping themselves in whatever coats and blankets they can find. The moisture in their breath begins to condense on the walls and the windows. It freezes into a thin layer of frost. The interior of the ship becomes a glittering ice cave. The windows are no longer clear portals to the stars. They are frosted panes diffusing the sunlight into soft, hazy shapes. Inside this cold cocoon, the noise is almost non-existent. Usually, a spacecraft is a noisy place, filled with the whir of pumps and the beep of alarms. But now, to save power, almost everything is turned off. The silence is heavy and thick. It is a library silence, a church silence. The ship is no longer flying in the traditional sense. It is no longer firing its engines to cut through the dark. It has become a passive object, a piece of driftwood caught in a celestial current. The crew has to rely on a maneuver known as a free return trajectory. This means they are trusting gravity to bring them home. They are aiming for the moon, not to land, but to swing around it. They are using the moon's gravity as a slingshot, a giant invisible hand that will catch them, turn them around, and gently toss them back toward Earth. As they approach the moon, they pass into its shadow. The sun is blocked by the bulk of the grey world. The frost on the windows darkens. They are drifting over the mysterious far side of the moon, the side that never faces Earth. And as they slip behind the moon, they lose contact with home. The radio waves cannot pass through the rock. The voices of mission control, which have been their constant lifeline, fade into static and then into nothingness. For nearly half an hour, they are the most isolated human beings who have ever lived. They are cut off from all of humanity. There is no one to talk to, no one to ask for help. But in this retelling, let us not feel fear. Let us feel the peace of that isolation. They are floating in the shadow of an ancient world, shielded from the sun, shielded from the voices of Earth. They are alone with the stars. Looking out of the small, triangular windows of Aquarius, they can see the craters of the far side passing slowly beneath them. These are rugged, ancient scars that have never been smoothed by the gaze of human eyes. The moon is huge, filling the entire view, a rolling landscape of grey and black. It is silent. It is indifferent. It is beautiful. They are drifting over the peaks of mountains that have no names, over valleys that have known only shadow for billions of years. As they round the curve of the moon, something miraculous happens. The Earth rises. From behind the curved rim of the moon, a small blue crescent appears. It is delicate and fragile, a marble of sapphire and white swirling clouds, hanging in the endless black. It is the only thing in the universe that has color. To the tired, cold men floating in their icy ship, it is a beacon of warmth. It grows larger and brighter as they drift out from the moon's shadow. The radio crackles back to life. The voices return, soft and distant at first, then clearer. They have turned the corner. They are coming home. The journey back is long and quiet. For days they drift. The ship rotates slowly, a motion called the barbecue roll, designed to distribute the heat of the sun. But with the power low, the roll is uneven. The sun sweeps across the windows, blindingly bright, and then darkness returns. Light, light, dark. It is a slow, hypnotic rhythm. Inside, the men sleep in short bursts, floating in their harnesses. They dream of warm showers and hot coffee. But for now, they accept the cold. They have become creatures of the void, hibernating in their metal shell. They can see debris floating outside the window, shards of insulation, droplets of frozen water, drifting along with them. These constitute a small, glittering flotilla, accompanying them through the night. The ship is a tiny island of life in a vast ocean of emptiness, but it is holding. The walls are thin, but they are strong enough. The oxygen is low, but it is enough. The water is rationed, but it is enough. They are living on the edge of sufficiency, discovering how little is truly needed to survive. There is a profound lesson in the drift of Apollo 13. It teaches us that when our engines fail, when our plans crumble, when we lose the power to direct our own course, we are not lost. We are simply held by a larger force. The astronauts could not steer the ship with their hands, but the laws of physics held them. Gravity, the silent ruler of the cosmos, took control. It cradled the ship in its mathematical arms and carried it along a path that had been determined since the beginning of the solar system. There is comfort in surrendering to that flow, in trusting that the universe has a path for you, even when you cannot see the controls. Finally, the Earth fills the window. It is huge now, a vast shield of blue water and white clouds. The time has come to leave the lifeboat. They move back into the command module, Odyssey. They power it up, a cold awakening for the sleeping machine. They cast off the service module and the lunar module. They watch Aquarius drift away, a faithful friend that served its purpose. It tumbles slowly into the atmosphere to burn up, a final sacrifice for their safety. And then they fall. They hit the atmosphere. The cold of space is instantly replaced by the heat of re-entry. Outside the windows, the air turns to plasma. It glows orange, then yellow, then white. It is a fiery embrace, the atmosphere welcoming them back. The silence of space is broken by the roar of the wind. But inside the capsule, the men are still. They are strapped in, waiting. They are riding a meteor. The radio goes silent again, the famous blackout caused by the ionized air. But this time, it is not the silence of isolation. It is the silence of transition. They are passing through the fire to get to the water. Then the parachutes open. 3 giant flowers of orange and white bloom in the sky. The violent deceleration turns into a gentle sway. The roar of the wind fades to a breeze. They drift down through the clouds, swinging softly. Below them is the Pacific Ocean, a vast, calm expanse of blue. Splashdown. The capsule hits the water. It bobs to the surface. And then, for the first time in days, there is a new motion. It is not the free fall of orbit, nor the tumbling of the drift. It is the rocking of the sea. The gentle, rhythmic swell of the ocean waves cradles the ship. They are back. They are heavy again. Gravity pulls them down into their seats. They open the hatch and breathe the sweet, salty air of Earth. The drifting ship has found its harbor. The long, cold journey is over. The silence of space has been replaced by the sound of waves and the distant cry of seagulls. They are home. As we let the image of the floating capsule fade, we realize that we too are passengers on a drifting ship. Our planet, Earth, is a vessel traveling through the dark. We are all astronauts, floating together in the void, protected by a thin bubble of air, warmed by a single star. We are drifting in a spiral arm of a galaxy that is itself drifting through the universe. We are safe, we are held, we are exactly where we are supposed to be. The engines of the day have stopped. The noise of the world has faded. You are in your own capsule now, warm and safe. You have drifted through the stars, visited the moons, and touched the asteroids. You have seen the beauty of the cold and the comfort of the dark. And now, the journey is drawing to a close. The parachute is open. You are drifting down, down, down toward the soft ocean of sleep. We have traveled far tonight, my friend. We have journeyed across distances that the human mind can barely comprehend, yet we have done so without ever leaving the comfort of this quiet moment. Together we have drifted through the velvet silence of the cosmos, exploring the ancient and sleeping wonders that surround our home. Now, as the journey draws to a close, let us take one final look back at the path we have traveled, gathering the peace of those distant worlds to wrap around us like a warm blanket. Think back to where we began. On the grey, silent plains of the Sea of Tranquility, we walked among the shadows and the light, standing beside the footprints that will never fade. We learned that there are places in this universe where time stands still, where a moment can be preserved for eternity in the dust. That stillness is a part of you now. It is a reminder that deep within your own mind, beneath the noise of the day, there is a place of absolute quiet that cannot be disturbed, a place as permanent and peaceful as the moon itself. We drifted past the sleeping machines, the gold and silver relics we left behind. They are still there, resting in the vacuum, watching the earth rise and set. They remind us of our connection to the sky. We are not separate from the universe. We are explorers, touching the void with hands of metal and glass, leaving pieces of our history among the stars. We floated alongside the interstellar traveler, Oumuamua, that lonely shard of red rock tumbling through the dark. It taught us the beauty of letting go, of allowing the currents of gravity to carry us where we need to go, like that traveler. We are all moving through a vast night, but we do not need to steer constantly. Sometimes it is enough to just tumble, to just drift, trusting that the momentum of life will carry us forward. We moved through the sparse river of the asteroid belt, seeing the floating fossils of creation. Vesta, Ceres, Psyche, worlds of stone, ice and metal that never hurried to become planets. They are content in their incompleteness. They remind us that we do not always need to be finished or perfect. Like them, we are works in progress, floating in the space between what we were and what we will become. And there is a profound beauty in that state of being. We watched the comets unfurl their tails of light, transforming from cold ice into radiant glory. We learned that even in the deepest freeze, there is potential for warmth and brilliance. And we dove beneath the thick, frozen shells of Europa and Enceladus, finding oceans of warm water hidden in the dark. Those hidden seas remind us of the depth of our own spirits. On the surface, things may seem quiet or frozen, but deep down, there is always movement, always warmth, always life waiting to be discovered. We descended into the orange mists of Titan, watching the gentle methane rain fall into silent lakes. We saw a reflection of our own world, distorted and strange, yet familiar. It showed us that the patterns of nature, the flow of rivers, the calm of a lake, a universal song sung by planets across the galaxy. And finally, we drifted with the crew of the damaged ship, turning off the engines and surrendering to the long, silent fall back home. We learned that when we stop fighting, when we stop trying to control every variable, gravity catches us. The universe held them, and it is holding you now. You are safe. You are supported. You are exactly where you are supposed to be. You are not just an observer of this universe. You are a part of it. The atoms in your body, the calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, they were all forged in the hearts of ancient stars that burned billions of years ago. You are stardust that has come together for a brief moment to think, to breathe, and to dream. You are the universe experiencing itself. When you look up at the night sky, you are not looking at something foreign. You are looking into a mirror. The silence of the space between the stars is the same silence that resides within your heart when you are truly at rest. If these calm, curious explorations help you unwind and find a place of peace, I invite you to like or subscribe to this channel. It helps other sleepy souls find their way here too, creating a community of dreamers drifting together through the night. And now, the journey is over. The ship has landed. The stars are dimming. There is nothing left for you to do. You have learned all you need to learn for tonight. You have seen the beauty of the dark. Now, it is time to let it all fade. Let the images of the moon and the planets dissolve into a soft grey mist. Let the facts and the figures float away like dust motes in a sunbeam. Your mind has done enough work. Your curiosity has been satisfied. Now, the only thing that matters is the heaviness of your eyelids and the slow, steady rhythm of your breathing. The universe will continue its dance without you for a while. The planets will spin, the comets will fly, the stars will burn. They do not need you to watch them. They will be there when you wake. For now, you can release your hold on the world. You can sink into the support of your bed, feeling the gravity of the earth pulling you down into a deep restorative slumber. Rest in the knowledge that mystery itself is a kind of lullaby. The questions we cannot answer are not things to worry about. They are vast open spaces where our dreams can wander. The dark is not empty. It is a canvas for your rest. Close your eyes. Let your breathing become as slow and steady as the orbit of a distant moon. Let your thoughts drift away like a ship cutting its engines. You are safe. You are home. Sleep well and dream of a quiet, radiant sea of stars. Good night.